With great fanfare, the county executive announced a proposed budget for Montgomery County at a whopping $6.3 billion, $300 million more than last year's budget. The county executive said he wanted to focus on affordable housing, climate change, and increasing police salaries, among other areas. Mike, a great deal of the increase in this budget is targeted towards social programs, which Mr. Elrich, claims were harmed by the COVID pandemic. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think they have, although interestingly, I think the county ended up having to use a number of social service organizations to help distribute resources during the pandemic. And so I know a number of social service organizations in the county have actually gotten stronger as a result of COVID because they served in a capacity to help distribute funds. So, I mean, I think if we look at mental health, that's still an issue. We talked about that on our last show. That's something, whether that's in schools or more globally, something needs to be addressed. But I think that it is an election year, and it looked to me that there was the distribution of candy. That there's a whole lot of folks got a whole lot of not a lot of money, but enough to feel better about where they were. The challenge I saw was when you get this kind of additional money, it's a chance for us to really begin to think how we're structurally addressing our budget. And we talk about things like the energy tax, which we know makes the county less competitive relative to our neighbors, and it's $200 million each year in the budget. And so if we actually have more money, this would have been a really good year to think about how do we start to defray how much is going that energy tax to build a more sustainable, more competitive base going forward. And there wasn't a whole lot of conversation about that more strategic approach. There was more focus on how do we get a lot of resources into the hands of a lot of people.
Well, that's an interesting segue because Laurie, former council member Howie Dennis, used to say that Montgomery County residents hate paying taxes, but they love the services that the county provides. One of those services is, designed towards environmental programs. 18.6 million in new funds are being devoted to the county's green bank. Is this money well spent, or as Mike suggests, should we look at other alternatives to the energy taxes?
Yeah, it reminds me when I went to visit the Ford plant in Detroit, and they spent more time talking about the green initiatives that they were doing and their green roofs, that they weren't talking about their actual business. And I feel like that's what's happening with the county. They're talking so much about green initiatives. Now, maybe the green bank will be helpful to help businesses find loans and things to be able to have some more green initiatives. And if that helps them, fine. But if it hurts the businesses, that's not a good thing. We want to make sure we enhance what we can to help businesses grow and thrive in Montgomery County. More money should have been spent on that part of the budget instead of all these green initiatives.
So, we beat the drum on this program a lot about, economic development and competitiveness with our neighboring jurisdictions, particularly across the river in Virginia. Is there anything in this budget that really helps economic development, Mike?
I mean, arguably, and you're going to talk about this in a minute as we look at kind of some initiatives for something like Montgomery College. I think there's some workforce elements that are there, but I think when we look at why we aren't as competitive relative to our neighbors, a lot of it is the structural stuff. It's things that make it harder to live, more costly to be here. And I don't think we addressed any of those issues. I think economic development, the organization got some more resources they were looking for, and hopefully that will help them market better and do some things. But those underlying challenges that why someone would pick Fairfax versus here, I don't think we use this budget to address, unfortunately.
Well, and when you look at the schools too, I looked at the FY 2011 budget, 49.3% of the budget back then went towards the public schools. This year for the 2023 budget, 46.4% is going towards public schools. So it shows you the priority is moving away from public schools, and that's not going to bring more people to our county either. So that's a real big concern.
Well, but Laurie, isn't $3 billion enough for the county schools?
It seems like it would be, but when you look at how the pie is cut, the pie is getting smaller. That's what I'm saying, and maybe there's a good reason for it. But we are losing enrollment this year, so that could be another reason why they're only fulfilling 99% of the requested budget for public schools.
Well, I think I don't want to get sidetracked on just the school issue. We can devote a whole topic to that by itself. Real quickly, Mike, I want to follow up with you. There is money in this budget to increase a Eastern Educational Center for Montgomery College, $3.3 million. Talk about that very briefly.
So one of the things that we've recognized for a while is that eastern part of the county is generally underserved with a variety of services. And so the county has been trying to figure out how to kind of reinvigorate that with developments like White Oak and other places. But one of the things we need to recognize is east-west migration patterns in Montgomery County are a real challenge. And so the population there doesn't have access to higher education in much of the way the rest of the county does. And so what the college is doing is now initially putting together a service center that will allow us to provide courses to East County residents that sort of make that accessible, and then look to see, does it make sense for us to expand and have a fourth campus in the East County that again will serve as a hub for economic development and make access to the population there for more courses and more certificate programs to help grow that economy and help those folks advance themselves.
So, I mean, Montgomery College is the hidden, one of the best hidden gems of our county. And I think it's great that we're recognizing that there's a need on the eastern side. Laurie, the county has been hit also by a number of early retirements from the police force and an apparent difficulty in attracting new officers. The last recruiting class held back in January, I think only had 18 even members in the class. So is the effort to increase salaries going to be enough to reverse the trend?
Well, they are proposing quite an increase in salaries to try to make them more on par with the rest of the state and around us. So I think that may help a little bit, but there still has to be much done in improving morale with the police force. And when they're cutting the SRO program, but they're trying to put in a CEO program where it's not as effective as before in our schools, it's just showing that they're cutting things and they're not doing things that are really what's best for the safety of our children and for the rest of our citizens here. So I'm really concerned about all that.
Well, in addition to some of the initiatives that the council has taken, there are also state initiatives that have targeted the way our policing is conducted, and there's a major crime bill, I guess, pending in the state. We'll have to take a look and see what impact we have from that.